Welcome everyone to today's panel discussion. My name is Khwezi Becker and I'll be the moderator for today. We are discussing the topic Hate is a Virus today, preaching equality and justice. I'm joined by amazing artists, Victoria Adukwei Bulley from the UK, this is Kanye Shusha from South Africa, Roy Bokon from Togo, and Canuto Roldán from Mexico. And it's such a joy to be with each of you, and I admire the work that you do. I've spent some time seeing all the work that each of you do, and I'm honored to be in discussion with you today in conversation. And I would like to first introduce each artist that we have today. One of our artists is a French speaker. He's Francophone, so he will be joining us at the end for our performances that we will have. But in discussion today, we have Canuto Roldán from Mexico. Canuto is a non-binary poet, performer and promoter of reading, co-founder of Abia Yala Poetry Islam, coordinator of Circuito Nacional Poetry Slam Mix, and Arasif Islam, the poetry slam by and for trans people. Canuto has participated as a manager and poet in the global protest 100,000 Poets for Change since 2011, and has published poetry about affective violence embodied by LGBTQ+ corporeality. Their poetic presentations are crossed by performance and make eroticism and affection a restorative and collective act. Welcome to Poetry Africa.
Hi, Khwezi. Thank you.
Hi.
Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much. If you don't mind just telling us a bit of an aspect of your work that I may not have touched on, that you would like our audiences to know about, that deals with equality and justice and that kind of work.
Of course, thanks. It's a big question, and I think it's very worthwhile to ask this question all around the world, because our realities and our identities are facing all the time the fact to claim for the right to be heard everywhere. And I mean, I think here in Mexico, it maybe is looks like it's not that a bad situation for culture and for art. But for a person from LGBT+ community, for a non-binary poet like me, for trans people, it's really hard to manage poetry to be heard for all the community. It is really hard to to spread the message all around. More, if you have in account that Mexico is the second country in the world with more hate crime against trans people. So here in this continent, first is Brazil, and then is Mexico. So it's not that easy when you have the purpose to spread a message for equality and everybody deserves to be heard, and the access to art and poetry as a way to organize and to be sensitive. But we are doing it together, right? So that's how we started to organize this circuit of open mics and poetry slams with Abya Yala Poetry Slam. That's what I want to say right now.
Thank you so much. It's so good to know your context as well, to have that in mind as we speak. So thank you for sharing that. And next, I would like to welcome Victoria Adukwei Bulley to the virtual stage. She is a poet, writer, and artist. Her work has appeared in publications including the White Review, the London Review of Books, and the Poetry Review, and she is the winner of the 2018 Eric Gregory Award. She has held artistic residencies internationally in the US, Brazil, and the V&A Museum in London, and is currently a doctoral student at Royal Holloway University of London, where she is the awardee of Techne 2019 Studentship for Practice-Based Research. Welcome to Poetry Africa, Victoria. Please, can you unmute? Thank you. It's okay.
It's really funny because we've been in this pandemic for a while now, and yep. I think that I'm still forgetting to unmute myself when I should be a professional at this.
We are people. You don't have to unmute in real life, so I understand. Continue.
Thank you for having me. It's such a joy to be here. I was just saying that, it's nice to be able to be in a space with people from different parts of the world at a time when travel has not been as easy as possible. So I really enjoy the fact that I've been involved in this. So I think with my work, thinking about how my work might speak to injustice and inequality, I'm very careful with not labeling myself an activist, because I think that as a writer and a poet personally, I still feel that no matter what I do on the page, there still has to be action beyond the work. But in the work, a lot of my concerns are aspects of thinking about how we think about Blackness as a very, very nebulous, but very transnational identity formation in terms of how we see or how we are seen or not seen. Thinking also about femininity and gender and the slipperiness of gender, and also thinking about indigeneity. So my kind of route towards thinking about indigeneity is also rooted in my heritage is that I'm from Ghana, but born and raised in London. And so I've grown up with hearing my parents speak their native language in my house, and then leaving the house and going into the world speaking English, but not understanding that language. And so I'm really fascinated by the way that language carries culture, and also how the languages of cultures that have been colonized can carry something of the other worlds that were colonized, and if there's anything that we can gain from those cultures, whether it's thinking about gender, thinking about the environment. I think there's a lot of richness to be gained from maintaining an awareness of our indigeneity wherever we are from. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you and know your story that way. As a person of several nationalities, I understand. I hear you. The rooting and the umbilical cord is so integral to who we are. So next, I would like to welcome Kanye Shusha from South Africa. She is born and bred in the small town of Umkomazi. Kanye Shusha has proven to be a beacon of hope for all young girls from small towns, encouraging them to dream bigger than their backgrounds. Kanye is an artist, a poet, and a sangoma, and now owns the creative company Kanye Shusha Creations, in addition to a spiritual consultation business. This dynamic artist holds a Bachelor of Social Science degree in psychology and industrial psychology, and studied drama and performance at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Kanye has performed on various stages alongside legendary poets and artists. She is currently working with Indigenous arts activist Ubabvita Sitole on a project called Umzizima, which aims to expose young people across South Africa to the wealth and opportunities available through Indigenous music. She's also writing an anthology and play titled Traces of God. Amakosis, welcome.
Hi to everyone. Yeah, I'm Kanye Shusha, and I think my work is very personal, and I believe when we working with the personal, everything and everyone around us is touched in a manner. Everything that happens around us affects us and our personalities and how we choose to navigate the world and how we interact with people. So as a South African, I feel very privileged to be an African in Africa because I do not have a lot of exposure to not being born, to not being in a space where I'm looking for the word, to not being in a space where I feel like out of place in a sense. But at the same time, as much as I'm in South Africa, I think colonization and a lot of our past with apartheid and everything has left us very, very, very puzzled and with an internal catalyst, because now we in this space where we're in Africa and we have a sense of pride and feel like we are the superior Africans compared to all the other Africans in the world, because we're still in the mother continent. But at the same time, when we look at our surroundings, when we look at our culture, and when we look at our beliefs and values, so much colonization has happened that we have actually lost a sense of pride in who we are and do not really understand who we are besides the rituals and the exposure to certain rituals we face and we see in our country. But at the same time, I feel like we are faced with a very, very big catalyst, internal catalyst when it comes to navigating self, when it comes to issues of justice, when it comes to issues of equality and just equality in a sense. More than anything, it's very broad and puzzling, and it leaves you in a state of just confusion in a sense most of the time, because we here but we're not here at the same time. We have access to everything but we do not own anything at the same time. So we're always involved in the sense of just being in a constant catalyst. And with my work, it's very personal. More than anything, it's for me, firstly, so that I grow, so that I navigate, so that I understand who I am. Why am I here as a spiritualist? Why am I here as a person? What does it mean to be Black? What does it mean to be woman? There's so many labels that I have to carry at the same time. So when I write, it's to express myself, is to heal. It's a therapeutic process, but at the same time, it's to share the experiences that I've gone through with other people who might feel the same way, and I hope that it touches them somehow and it forces them to interrogate the states that they are in and what they would like to do with it and how to move on and to move forward in the future and everything. So yeah, that's it for me. I feel like I don't see myself as an activist or a revolutionarist or any of those, but I'm just a human being sharing my human experience and hoping that somebody is touched out there and somebody listens and it does something to someone and inspires them to interrogate and to just forever keep searching for who they are and why they are here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey, Susie. Yeah, lots of things resonating for those of us living in South Africa. It's definitely more conversations need to be had. So thank you for bringing those up. And lastly, I would like to introduce Roy Bokon from Togo. Now, he is a graduate of the Faculty of Law in the University of Lome, Public Law option, with a certificate in presentation and communication skills from the Swiss Management Center University in Switzerland. Roy Bokon took his first steps as a slammer in 2015 within the Amnesty International Togo movement before joining the open stages organized in the capital. Bonjour, Roy.
Oui, bonjour. Bonjour à tous et c'est un plaisir de participer à ce festival, à cette 25e édition de Poetry Africa. et un réel honneur pour moi d'être participant à ce panel. Et je suis en train de vous suivre, même si j'ai des difficultés et à bien parler anglais, mais je fais honneur également à la langue française et j'y vais et je vous suis, mais je vais intervenir en français. Merci bien.
Merci beaucoup. So the little that I understood is that he's happy to be on the panel, even though speaking English is not entirely open to us currently, but he's happy to give his offering and we'll receive it at the end. So thank you. Merci, merci. And
Merci.
now into the conversation. So looking at the activism of poetry, although we don't necessarily all like to claim the term of activism, but the act of empowerment, the act of speaking strength, of speaking change, of speaking transformation into existence, is something that each and every one of you do. And it's many a time been part of all kinds of revolutions. Here, of course, we've had it as part of the apartheid revolution times, and coming out of that, and now coming into light where we go, oh yay, democracy, and then you suddenly go, yeah, there are so many things that we need to face. There's so many things that are unraveling at the seams now that we don't all have a common thing that we're good running at and jumping at. Now we're all dealing with our individual struggles, and we're realizing that actually a lot is based in just not being able to accept difference, being terrified of difference. And this is what I feel is something that breeds hate. It's people just unwelcome and no ability to know what to do in terms of difference. And so I'm curious to know how you feel in your different spaces about that conversation, about what poetry does in these spaces, what kind of role, if any, you feel that poetry has in the different spaces that you're in, that your poetry in particular, that you feel you would like for it to have. And yes, so if we could begin with that conversation, perhaps we can begin with Victoria.
Almost. So thinking about the kind of impacts I'd like my voice to have in spaces, I think with my work, I would really like to provide a space for, almost a space for meditation on the themes of the work. And it's tricky because I think that there are so many ways to have an impact, and books are just one of them. And I think that I don't want to overestimate the power of something I've written, but I also know that as a writer, as someone who has enjoyed reading for so long, I know personally what other people's work has done for me in terms of making it easier to be alive. I know that that is a thing. So I think that with my work, I want to also create a space for that resting and that kind of solace and that kind of thinking and like question marks and so that, you know, the highest goal I would say is that you open the book and you enter it like you would a house, and you spend some time in that house, and then by the time you close the book and you leave that house, you have something that you didn't have before. I think that's a really powerful thing, even if it is sometimes quite a small and personal thing. But that's what I really want my work to be able to achieve.
Thank you. No, definitely. I hear you on that. This is Kanye. Would you like to take it away?
Wow, that's a very deep question, hey, because for me, art is everything. Art is life, not just poetry. I think poetry is art in its own, because it can infuse so many art forms into one. But for me, art has played a very pivotal role in my life. It has changed me. It has opened my eyes to the world, to beyond the world, to what I can be and what other people have become through words. It has groomed me. It has forced me to self-actualize. It has done a lot of things. It has done a lot of things, and it has made me more empathetic than sympathetic, and everything, because when you listen to other people's work, something happens. Like, poetry has this ability to just move you, and not just move you, but to force you to change, to force you to think, to force you to not just be in a state of comfort. And I think that's what poetry has done for me. It has broadened my horizon in ways I cannot even put into words. And that's funny as a poet, but I cannot really put it into words how much it has done. And that's what I hope when I share my work, because as I said, it's very personal first. I always hope that whoever is receiving it just take something, whatever it is, let it be theirs, you know what I mean, more than what I would like, because art does different things to different people. A simple a sentence or can mean so many things to different people. So I do not like to actually control the narrative of my work, but I would actually like each and every person who has come across it to be moved one way or another. And yeah, that's it for me. That's the act of the work. The art is bigger than me. It's bigger than anyone else. The work, the words, I would like to say they don't belong to me also, because sometimes you just get to a space where it's like you're in a trance. You write these things, and once you're done, you're like, hey, who is this person? Because sometimes it's like different personalities come to play at once, and we speak about things we've never known, especially with my work now, because I focus on spirituality a lot, and when I write these things, I'm really, it doesn't come from me. It's not my work to say. There's something else. There's a bigger force, there's a bigger power behind it that wants to express, and I have to listen first, and I take different things, because poems, it's everything, man. Art is life. Art is the beginning, it's the end, it's the middle, it's in between, it's everything. Like,
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, no, both what you said also resonates so much for me with what Victoria said in terms of that home analogy. It's creating that home, that space, and transforming you. Literally, it's like when you visit a new friend's home for the first time, and they've got new ideas and they've got new things, and you're like, oh my gosh, we don't talk about these things in my house. And you come out and you're like, yes, I know more about the world. Right, so traveling. So yeah, art is traveling as well, to all kinds of realms. So definitely, I hear you. Canuto, do you have some words for us?
Sure, I'm fascinated with this metaphor of when you say like, wow, at home we don't talk about that. But now you hear that. I mean, like when you hear the poetry of more people around you, you discover another world, you leave another skin. So that's really, really beautiful, because you can realize like there is a bunch of different ways of living life that matter. Every single life matters, right? So every single poetry matters for that reason. We believe here in an association. Sorry, its name is Poesía y Trayecto. It's like a poetry and journey. We believe like poetry can happen everywhere, for every single person, in every single neighborhood, and we truly believe in that, because we actually grew up on really poor neighborhoods, right? So when we were growing up here, we were thinking like, damn, I think this is poetry, and I wanted to see it as a poetry and to spread it as a poetry. And then you see the people around is embrace it, is your voice like that, like poetry. So poetry is like that. It's like a communal home. Is a communal body, right? Is a communal voice, because it's heard for more people, and it's full in that moment of many different perspectives of life. So for me, what poetry does in my community, what I try with my job, with my work, is radical listening. We are talking here about radical listening, like what happens when you hear for the first time something that you didn't expect. It can be a shock for good, or maybe sometimes it's like shaking all your prejudices, right? And then you need to manage how to listen that, how you manage that, right? And that's, we are talking about radical listening, because we are, when we are organizing different poetry slams and open mics and events, we started to realize that we need to be all the time, keep autocritic all the time with all your practices, because I don't know if something that I say can, how it's going to impact to others. And then I need to be open to the feedback of the people. If they say like, oh, I didn't expect that, and what you say it results like I don't know, it hurts me in a certain way, even if it was not my intention, right? So I think it's something that we need to keep in mind, because when we are expecting that poetry is a space for everyone, I mean, like the realities are very different, and I don't know how it's gonna be received for everyone in that moment. And poetry is that, art is that, is an open house, and then you can see a house from different perspectives, not just from the open door, or not for the open window, for the rooftop, or for the, I don't know, you can see it from different spaces. So yeah, that's the thing I want to say in this moment about radical listening and the community.
No, that's lovely, and definitely this thing about how people receive you, or receive how you say things, and and what you do with that. Do you shy away from it, or do you begin a conversation? Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to open up space to talk about these things, so that people understand that you can't shy away from each other forever. And the more global the world is getting, the more we need to understand that difference is not a bad thing, and people are terrified of it. So yeah, I hear you completely in that sense. Thank you for that. And I think that leads perfectly. I'm as a person of different nationalities, I know that who I am and my work changes from space to space, right? When I'm in South Africa, I'm seen differently. As a person, I'm grouped differently, racially, culturally, with the language that I speak is different, as opposed to when I visit my father's family in Germany, and then the grouping is different, the weight of the skin color is different, the you know, how I look like walking next to my father. No one assumes I'm his daughter before they assume other things. So all these kinds of different changing of person and space, to me, I find that curious, especially now when you take your work to different places and different spaces. I'm curious to know about how your work transforms in space and how it's received by those people, yeah, if any space in particular stands out to you in comparison to your own country, how you're received, how your words, your messaging is interpreted differently, perhaps. And in particular with such difficult subjects such as race, such as sexual orientation or gender, or etc. There's such broad scopes of messaging, but I'm curious to know about that experience for each of you. I think, can we go to Sis Kanye?
That's a difficult question. I think for me, poetry or art should not be censored. I think the purpose of art is to make you feel uncomfortable. It's to make you feel comfortable. It's to make you feel more than anything. So I've come to notice with my work, it's quite not politically correct sometimes, and people catch feelings, and I do not mind that. I actually appreciate that, because for me, I would like to have a person who comes to me and says, you made me feel uncomfortable. And then I would ask, why are you uncomfortable? Are you uncomfortable because of what I've said, or are you uncomfortable for other reasons? So for me, art, the purpose of art is to interrogate yourself, is to constantly grow. As I said, art is there to guide you, to lead you to a place of self-actualization, because I feel we are very comfortable as people. We are happy and very sad at the same time, and we are willing to talk about everything, but not the things that matter the most. So for me, race is a very important topic, and it should be one that is not comfortable, because we have dead bodies because of it. It should be a topic that's not comfortable because we have people living in spaces where it's not humane because of race. Because of race, we are very segregated. Because of race, there's discrimination. Because of race, there is so much inequality on its own. So as artists, as poets, I feel like our purpose and our job is to interrogate our own our purpose on this earth, but to also interrogate the roles we play in the things that are happening, because having access to an audience and that's and speaking and having people listen to you is a very powerful tool, and it should not always be comfortable. I think these conversations, so long as they're comfortable and they're politically correct, then we will not go anywhere. We will constantly be in the state of just discomfort and pretending to be happy. We will constantly be in a space of inequality. We will always be in a space of segregation. We will always be in a space of not understanding each other and our grievances. So I feel poetry and my work is basically about speaking about things that need to be said, but it's not comfortable when they are said. But say these things, as much as they are uncomfortable, they lead to healing, they lead to a way forward, and they lead to personal interrogation and reaching a space where we grow and these inequalities that I've been speaking about change, man, because race has done a lot of things. These isms that have come and these ideologies that have come forth, they have created a lot of mess that needs to be cleaned up. They've created a lot of mess that we are automatically stuck in without participation. So I think it's about time that we participated. It's about time that we spoke about the uncomfortable truths. And when I'm in spaces with different races, because I'm Black first, and I can only speak about being Black, which is what I understand. It's what I've been. It's the skin I've been in for a very long time, and that skin has led to certain situations happening to me. I've had. I remember I was standing in the street, and I live in a space where it's a farm, so it's a sugarcane farm with Afrikaners and stuff like that. I've been in a moment where I was just standing in the street waiting for a taxi, and had these Afrikaner guys come to me and telling me they want to rape me and they want to shoot me, you know, and then laughing about it and walking off. So I cannot then be in a space where I do not speak about these things because now I'm worried about what people will think about. I'm in a space where I grew up in an RDP, you know, in a house without proper sanitization, without proper infrastructure. It's not a proper infrastructure, where poverty is all around me, and our neighboring town is very close by, and people are living lavishly, and people are just throwing away food, which from where I come from is a very important element. People work from 5 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. at night just to be able to afford food. So for me, my work cannot be candy coated a lot, because my personal has been very subjugated to things that I feel I shouldn't have been subjugated to because of my race. So yeah, I don't think my work makes a lot of people comfortable, actually. My work doesn't make me comfortable, but at the same time, it needs to be said, and it's things that need to be heard. Ndiabulela.
Of course, no, dismembering systems that don't work has never been comfortable, and people who benefit from those systems assume, no, let's continue to be comfortable. The rest of us are not comfortable, so let's dismember and then have a plan on how to continue after we've dismembered. So I hear you. And you're feeling, the idea about feeling as well, whether you feel uncomfortable, the fact that you're feeling, that's what's going to get you to move. It's our feelings that allow for action to occur. So yes, moving to Victoria, can you please share?
Yeah, I really, I want to kind of take off from where Kanye was leaving, because I think the emphasis that she placed on being uncomfortable, but also it's not just about making others feel uncomfortable, it's about the self as well. And I think that as people who write and then publish our work, or write and then perform our work to audiences of different backgrounds, it's, if we have the bravery to go to a certain place where we can interrogate what's really going on in the world, we can expect, or we can hope then that other people might do that. But if we don't do that, we can't hope that other people will be brave enough to do the same thing. So I think it's important that she was saying that, you know, her work is not comfortable even for herself, because we can't expect anyone to feel anything that we don't feel first. I think in addition to that, your question makes me think about the process of putting a book together. So I'm kind of in the final stages of putting my first collection together. And what I find really interesting is that if I'm going to do a reading with an audience that has a lot of Black people, I might choose my poems differently than if I'm going to an audience which has a lot more white people. And you can't do that when you are bringing a book together, because you are putting all of your poems, or all of the ones that you want to put into the book, are going into the book together. So you have to, it then makes you really think about what is the overall thing that I want to say, regardless of who is listening, and how can it be a coherent thing? Because, and I think Canuto kind of referenced this as well, like everybody's looking at the house differently. So it's kind of like, you have to make allowance for the fact that there will be different readings based on where people are coming from, based on their race, based on even their age, their gender, sexuality, religious or belief system. There's going to be all these different readings of your work, but the focus, I feel, has to be, what is it that you or I or we really want to say on our own terms? Because once it leaves us, it's kind of almost not our business anymore. Our business is to be present with the work, to have integrity, to feel brave enough to do that excavation. But after that point, I think we hand it over, and we don't always know what's going to happen next. So we have to make peace with that.
Yeah, very true. It's no longer yours once you gift it away. So I hear you. And Canuto, if you could also briefly let us know your thoughts.
Sure, I think it's really hard because hearing all many contexts of Victoria's and Khanyi's. Wow, thank you so much first for sharing all of this. I think I was thinking, for example, about to be comfortable. I mean, like in my experience, I remember now, like 10 years ago, when I started to perform and read poetry out loud, I felt at the beginning really uncomfortable, but I pushed myself to keep claiming for my right to be with an audience, because I knew, like for me, like a non-binary person, like a poet from the periphery in Mexico City, it was a right that I deserved, because I survived to domestic sexual abuse, and I knew like many people in my context was the same. And I know actually right now many people, like a child and youth, are facing the same. So it's not really, I mean, it's not really comfortable to raise your voice about these topics, not. And of course, as Victoria said, when you face your audience and you say like, okay, these people is like, for me, like these people is cisgender and heterosexual, and I think, how can I explain this? My words, I cannot choose my words, not knowing that they will feel like in shock completely. Of course they will. And I say like, I'm sorry, this is what I not just only this is not just only my poetry, but what I have passed on my life, right? So this story deserves to be in a history, because you need to know it in the with the purpose to many people, all the people can have a dignity, right? So we here in Mexico, I want to tell you something about what we are doing right now for childhood and youth. We are, as a collective, Arrecife Arte Trans, we are organizing specific magazines, one for youth and the other for childhood and families, right? And this we ask to trans childhood and their families to write poetry, tales, make draws, and share them to us for the magazine. And we are really happy for that, because in that way we can hear the voices of the trans child who is asking right now for the right to have an identification, right? Like because in Mexico it's not legal in many states, right? We are actually pushing for this right, and we are seeing right now like it's happening, but it's really slow, step by step, like. And well, we truly believe that with poetry and with these magazines we can contribute with some. So I think in that way we can fight hate speeches in poetry in our community. Mm-hmm. With inviting all the people, not just not just the youth and adults, but the childhood also, and their families also, because in that way they see they can go together, and we, the artists and the poets, we are the friends of them to accompany their life.
Thank you. To belong to a tribe. That's so important. Thank you. I think time is running so quickly. Okay, so we have some questions from the audience. I think maybe just we'll ask one from the audience, and one of you can maybe respond, and then I think we can go into our closing with whatever offerings you'd like to give us. Okay, so looking from Nanindube, looking at the title Hate is a Virus, how can poets avoid hate speech in their writings, in their quest for justice and political reconstruction? I have the impression that many poets, in seeking justice, equality, freedom, etc., tend to infest their poetry with hate speech that spread like a virus. It has caused conflict, psychologically, ideological, or physical. I think we kind of have already touched on this, that shock and needing to speak truth as bluntly as it is in order for people to hear and see is necessary, but perhaps there is some kind of, in some poets' voices, some kind of brutality that is not being realized on their part that is affecting the audiences. I don't know if any of you have something to respond in terms of that. This is Kanye, yes.
I think, as I said before, the art should not be censored. And I think we need to be very careful with terminology, because sometimes people tend to think you are being hateful when you are speaking your hurt. So hurt and hate are two different things, you know. So when I speak about an experience that has made me feel hurt as a poet, I need to express it in a manner that hurts you, you know. And when I hurt you, I'm not hurting you because I want you to feel hurt, so that you interrogate that feeling, so that next time, whichever situation you find yourself in, you are careful to make sure that that person is not, you don't hurt using the same instances that you've seen. With hate speech, it's a very delicate term, hate. I think hate is a very, very delicate term, and I do not think that any artist goes to stage with the intent to incite crime, you know, to incite hate speech, but basically they're there to express themselves in the most honest and truthful manner as possible. And should you feel hurt as the audience when a person has recited and after and you feel uncomfortable, I think it's only fair and right, because to go to that person and let them know how you feel, you know, and understand it from a different perspective, because you might be feeling like they are saying hateful things, but not, they are not there. They were just expressing themselves, and they did not see it the way you did. As I said, words, a simple sentence can mean so many different things to different people. And when I write, I do not write it with the intent, it's with the intent to hurt, but it does anyway, you know what I mean? So I do not know, because I've had that before, where there was a guy, as I said, like my writing is very pro-black, so and there was a guy in the audience who is Caucasian. I don't like saying white, who's Caucasian, and he came to me, and the poem was African, and I spoke about this in 2015 in Poetry Africa, and he was touched with how I kept the poem titled Africa spoke about Black Africans in Africa more than anything, and he felt like I was being racist, you know, and it was in that conversation that I had to sit down with him and let him understand that no, it's not a racist thing, but I am Black first, and I have certain experiences that needs to be expressed. So when I say Black is God, it's not because I'm saying every other person who is not Black is not God, but it's not my purpose, it's not my duty to tell you that you are God. Should you feel that what I am saying is offending you, you also have a pen and a page, and you can write it down and go spread the message that you feel is necessary, you know. But with hate speech, I think people should be very careful with that word, because hate and hurt are two different things. And as artists as well, we do need, as much as I'm saying we must not be censored, but we do need to take responsibility for our words as well, because responsibility and accountability more than responsibility, because you might take responsibility but don't hold yourself accountable for the actions that come after that what you have said, you have uttered. So it's very important for us not to be politically correct, but to speak words that incites change, that incite, as I said, self-actualization, but also not, be careful, man, be careful, be responsible with your words, you know, at the same time, but not be censored.
No, thank you, you've said it perfectly. Articulate people help us to say what we need to say. Thank you so much. And I think with that, can we please have the closing remarks and closing snippets of our poetry? Unfortunately, I thought an hour was long. Apparently, time lies, but it's okay. Hopefully we'll meet again in person and continue this conversation. But thank you so much for your inputs. And if you could, if we could first begin with the video from Roy, that would be amazing.
Les nuages inondent la terre, le feu s'active au ciel, l'humain dégrade le naturel à travers des émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Ouh, la forêt brûle, le règne animal hurle, alerte, nous sommes sur la voie de l'extinction des espèces animales et végétales. Si rien n'est fait, pente orageuse, la glissade risque de nous être fatale. Sur l'Amazonie et la Sibérie, l'Afrique centrale et l'espace Groenland, ma plume verte scintille. Entre l'humain et la nature, je vous assure que c'est une totale rupture. Les communautés côtières ne cessent de subir la hausse de la température. La mer s'élève, le nuage inonde la terre, le feu s'active au ciel, le climat devient fou, la fonte des glaciers coule, les poumons de la planète s'étouffent. Mais sachez que si j'étais dans la nature, je priverais ce monde de mes merveilles, ne serait-ce qu'une semaine. Je demanderais à l'air de ne plus fournir aux habitants de cette planète de l'oxygène. Si j'étais dans la nature, je mettrais un terme au rayonnement du soleil, empêchant ici les plantes de faire de la photosynthèse. Oui, je demanderais à la lune de ne plus éclairer toutes les nuits la planète Terre. Je soufflerais dans les oreilles de la végétation de cesser de protéger les sols de l'ablation. Si j'étais dans la nature, je vous assure que je serais un véritable mature. Ouais, sérieux. Je ne permettrais à aucun arbre de porter des fruits. Je poserai mon veto. Il n'y aurait même pas une seule goutte de pluie. Si j'étais dans la nature, je priverais les hommes de mes merveilles, ne serait qu'une semaine. Ainsi, je ferais disparaître la faune, la flore, les fleuves, océans, les mers pour quelques heures. Si j'étais dans la nature, je vous le dis, je priverais les hommes de mes merveilles, ne serait-ce qu'une semaine. Puis après, j'attendrai de voir s'il y aura encore des émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Voulez-vous que je sois dans la nature? Eh bien, vous savez ce qu'il faut faire. Le roi Bokon, Slambeton, Mosagan, Canuto.
Thank you so much for that offering. Thank you. Wonderful. Please, can we go to Kanye next?
In closing, I would like to read a poem. It's titled State of Emergency. Our political state is a mess, with a world-class constitution masking our moral decay, which is even scarier. So these poets write, revolutionaries fight, Black lives die. Kanti, how much does a nation have to lose before it can regain self-worth? Dreams deferred. Our ancestors maneuvered this land, built on separatedness. Very few made it unharmed. Scars of this past still haunt these ones. Royalty turned to shantytown dwellers, told, do not dream, you are too Black. We are born by travelers, searching for a place to rest their bones as freedom chants fill colonial streets. Echoes of freedom fighters marching for basic human rights, to own themselves, to own their land so they can build homes and rest their ancestors' bones in peace. Not this mess. 2021, we are still stuck in RDPs, struggling to survive whilst foreign corporations thrive with our resources. Oh, maluju zinyanya zagwantu, pepisa imphefumulo, dala begqilaza nengqondo. We have forgotten how to pray and summon all gods that guide us out of this mess. We have the ability to regain all that's lost and reinstill self-worth. Our political state is a mess, with a world-class constitution masking our moral decay, which is even scarier. So these poets write, these humans fight, these humans still die. Kanti, how much does a nation have to lose before it can regain self-worth? Now we are in a state of emergency. We must unite, untie all the chains that hold us back from moving forward. There is a state of emergency to teach Black kids they are worthy to dream, teach them financial intelligence to plan their dreams to life, to plan their dreams to life, how to use their talents fruitfully. We might be in a state of emergency, but this too shall pass. Cleanse yourselves of low self-esteem and know that you are worthy. Our political state is a mess, with a world-class constitution masking our moral decay, which is even scarier. So yes, these poets will write, these revolutionaries will fight until the Black child receives emancipation. Thank you.
These poets will rise. Siyabulela, sis. Siyabulela. Next, can we please have Canuto?
Sure. I think I'm gonna share this in Spanish, and because I feel it more like that. Ayer, la noche fue más mi ciudad. Se cimentó en todos mis huesos ayer cuando el amigo de tu amigo no dudó más. Después de caminar todas las calles y desbordarme en tantos besos, celebrando el seguir viva entre los lobos, al llegar a la guarida más segura, la mala sombra en mis párpados me hizo ver el fuego que arde cuando nos ven bailar porque desean nuestra ceniza, porque les quema el placer. Ayer al despertar en la banqueta, sin zapatos, la cabeza henchida y una cobija apestando a orines, el muy perro me dejó su marca. Crucé la ciudad sintiéndome culpable porque borracha me dejé llevar hasta su cueva, este antro al que hemos venido a dar después de celebrar al estar vivas. Ayer, una vez más, metieron mano solo para desgarrar el pecho, arrebatar el sueño con espasmos. Es en su casa en donde lucho, náufrago en mis conjuros, maldigo, ruego, rezo palabras que no se entienden pero que infunden miedo para que el perro ese camine a casa maldito y no pueda abrir la puerta embrujado ni mirarse al espejo, así nomás como si nada en este mundo no se le fuera a marchitar alguna vez. Ayer, el perro ese encajó colmillo porque había una perra frente a él, callejera, de memoria entre las patas, sabedora del camino aunque errabunda, que este verso le persiga, le muerda y mie el pie para sembrar venganza en su guarida, su hogar que es fosa común, lote baldío sea la vida para él, propiedad sin dueño siga siendo yo. Okay, just a brief explanation about this. It's about one night I was celebrating with some friends, and then a man took me and he started to punch me, and well, I was victim of really bad violence that night. So that poem is about how I was surviving and how poetry saved me that night.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love how poetry has this way of allowing us to access languages even that we don't understand, because there was so much meaning there, and it might not have been exactly the words that you thought, but I hear it. I hear the meaning, and I have a task. I have so many languages to learn in my lifetime so that I can hear more poets. But please, Victoria, if you could take over.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's been such a pleasure to meet. I wish I could meet you in person. That's how I feel right now. I'm gonna read maybe just 2 poems. They're really, really short. And they are from the opening of my book, which is coming out next year, called Quiet. The first one is called Declaration, and the second one is called Declaration I. And yeah, I think that's all you need to know. Declaration. If sickness begins in the gut, if I live in the belly of the beast, if here at the heart of empire, if careful in the house of the host, if quiet at the hearth of the host, if here at the home of empire, if I live in the belly of the beast, let me beget sickness in its gut. Declaration I. Check if you want to, but you won't find any lyric shame here. We don't do that, no. We know of that here. You won't find one lash on the surface of this eye. Look, if I say I mean a lot of people, and at this table, all of us eat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for feeding us at your table. Yeah, thank you. It's been such an honor to be in conversation with each and every one of you. And I wish you all the prosperity and all the gentle strength and all the light in your journeys ahead. And I hope to meet you in person one day. It would be so lovely to be in the same room. So thank you. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. I appreciate.